Hi everybody, welcome to Power of Knowing Forum's Nexus Talk. Tech that moves you, ideas that scale you. From cloud infrastructure to cybersecurity to growth and leadership, our four pillars have been empowering worldwide. And today the topic of discussion is the new cyber fortress, why cloud security is your first line of defense in 2025. And your go-to podcast on tech, cyberspace, strategy and growth. I am Prem Kumar S, your host today, and we'll explore how fine line of defense works, or first line of defense works. So, a special welcome to all people who have joined in from Power of Knowing Forum, episode 277 live on LinkedIn today. And thank you for being part of our journey. Yes, to continue growth and success. To have this topic discussed, we have Gunjan Chhillar, Cloud Solutions Architect, India and SAARC at CrowdStrike, a cybersecurity evangelist, a keynote speaker and a moderator joining us today. Let's welcome our esteemed speaker to the podcast event and dive into the topic. Hi, Gunjan, how are you?
Hey, hi, Kumar sir. I'm good. How are you?
Good. A small intro about yourself to the audience, Gunjan.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Very good evening to each one of you. Thank you so much for joining this discussion today. I am Gunjan Chhillar. I am working as a cloud solution architect for India and SAARC region. I started my professional journey into cybersecurity domain, starting with PKI hardware security modules with this organization called Gemalto, which is now Thales. And then I worked for another amazing organization building a product into cyber risk quantification space ground up. And then finally, I'm working with a cybersecurity organization which is offering a lot of solutions when it comes to endpoint security, cloud security, identity protection, NextGem, and whatnot. So that's a brief about me, and I'm really excited to be talking about. My personal favorite topic, which is cloud security. I really hope this session is super informative, and I would encourage all of you to keep this engaging. Feel free to share your feedback, your comments, and your questions at the end of the session.
Thank you, Gunjan, for that intro. And let's dive into the topic now. Cloud is everywhere, right? So today, without cloud, we are not there at all. It's a mix of private cloud, public cloud, and hybrid, right? So why cloud security is the first line of defense and not the last is the first pointer that I want to talk to you on about and your views on it.
And I think that's the right question to start with to set the context here. When we talk about cloud security, it's no longer an afterthought. It's not the final gate before deployment like it used to be. It has become the first line of defense. And this change is not just logical, but it is also essential. Let's understand it why. First and foremost reason, cloud is the new battlefield. Every digital transaction that we see, starting from storing your health care details, your or running your mission critical workloads, your AI models, everything relies on cloud native infrastructure. In fact, as per Gartner, more than 95% of new digital infrastructure is now deployed on cloud native infrastructure. The perimeter that we used to know earlier, which is kind of a guardrail ecosystem, is gone. The new parameter has become your identity, your APIs, your workloads, your cloud services, etc., etc. Another reason to prioritize cloud security is about the threat landscape, the way we have seen this threat landscape evolving. If you look at modern adversaries, modern threat actors, they are not attacking systems. When it comes to cloud, they are actually exploiting the very architecture of cloud. And the reason I'm saying this, I would like to emphasize on this by talking about a real world cloud attack. So, this was about a operation called Operation Cloud Serpent, where security teams worldwide started celebrating catching thousands of crypto miners in their cloud ecosystems. And there were high fives all around. You can actually picture this. People are congratulating each other that the mission is accomplished, or so they thought. They have actually fall prey to one of the most misleading play in the cybersecurity history. While all their monitoring tools were flooded with alerts of crypto mining, the security teams immediately started jumped into taking actions by isolating the affected servers, by blocking those mining pools, and of course updating the security rules which are there. It started like any other attack: unusual CPU spikes, unknown processes running. While these teams were busy in handling those crypto miner incidents, there was something else which was happening at the back end. What was that? These threat actors, they were actually silently injecting malicious code into the container based images. They were actually creating backdoors in the cloud auto scaling templates, and they were creating hidden admin accounts in the cloud ecosystem. Like a digital version of Ocean 11, everything was planned very meticulously. All the API calls that were observed, they were legitimate. These attackers, they were actually mimicking the normal business traffic patterns. And all these incidents, all these executions were perfectly timed between security scans. The breakthrough came when one of the junior analysts noticed something odd. Why does our development servers making calls at 3 a.m. in the morning? And like that thread which unravels the whole sweater, this question led to a lot of other questions, which was discovering a lot of systems with backdoors, discovering mysterious data transfers. Crypto miners were not the crime, it was the perfect alibi. These threat attackers, they were actually exploiting those cloud native utilities. While the smokescreen of crypto miners started to clear, it revealed something which was far more sinister. If you ask me to describe the impact in one word, I would say haunting. There were more than 400 organizations which got impacted. There were thousands of systems with backdoors discovered and a lot of data exfiltration activities. Today, as we are talking, there might be another Operation Cloud Serpent unfolding. But what I would want you to remember going forward is the moment you catch the obvious threat, ask yourself a question: what am I not looking while I am being distracted by what I am looking at? The other reason to prioritize cloud is speed. Now, speed cannot be negotiable. Nowadays, we are seeing business they are deploying at almost the speed of light. We have seen applications version coming up super fast. That's the reason we have to make sure that we are starting to implement to practice security right from the very stage of development instead of keeping it at a later stage of the development. Security must keep pace. DevSecOps is not just a buzzword, it's the blueprint. So these are my thoughts on that.
Lot of information on it, Gunjan. I second whatever you are saying is we are moving everything in a fast pace, right? Where these backdoors are not really thought about, and these codes, these configurations that are there often get noticed by an an uneven event that is happening, as you rightly said, 3 a.m. why servers are making calls, right? So I think one of the topic that I was talking to one of another speaker in my roundtable last week was that uh, speed is good. It moves you faster, but are we moving at a speed with security also together? So that's the point that we were discussing, and we see we should look at cloud or AI adding more threat, because now if you see the number of threats that are being hit or the number of calls that are is huge. You cannot look at a person looking at whether it's a false positive or not. Where we look at so many coming into the picture. You're absolutely right on telling that. Now, most of the CISOs want to look at what should I be taking CrowdSec to the board level strategy. So, what is in for me as a CISO, right? So that What does it mean for as a CISO to take cloud sec to the board level and a strategy, make it a strategy? What is your take on it?
Excellent question, Prem sir. And before we get into the answer to this, I would like all of us to understand how does the CISO operates. Let's look at the challenges that they face on a day-to-day basis. It's always, getting troubled for asking budgets, reactive security measures, and constant firefighting. No matter what an organization lose, if there's any kind of incident or an attack, one thing that remains constant is always the CISO's job. So I would want to answer this question by talking about two CISOs handling the same ecosystem, handling the similar challenges which are there in their organization, at the same time operating with a very different approach. So here we have a CISO, Mr. Bhishma, who is facing all these challenges when he's going to his board members for budgets. He's being asked those nonsense questions: why you are worried, why you are worried for something which may happen, may not happen. We have other priorities, etc., etc. So while all this thing was going on, there's another CISO, I would say Miss Draupadi, who recently came across that there was an incident in one of the competitive organization which costed the organization around 50 million US dollars, and of course the CEO's job. So this CISO, Miss Draupadi, saw this as an opportunity, and when she went to the board meeting, she doesn't talk it just as another IT initiative. She reframed it as a strategic business enabler with a very clear agenda that our cloud posture isn't just about preventing breaches. It's about enabling our digital transformation while protecting our competitive edge. The moment she started talking in this, everyone started paying attention, because now we are talking about the business. Now we are talking not just the technical aspects, we are talking the business language, which everybody in the board meeting loves, right? The result, she got around 15 million additional budgets approved. In fact, a lot of other stakeholders now started reaching out to her proactively because they understand the agenda, the intent with which she's driving this initiative is to make sure that our business is transformed, our revenue is accelerated. Another thing, if I may ask you, Prem sir, a question here. Do you know what is the one industry which is thriving no matter what, how does the external circumstances changes? There is one single industries which always thrives. Do you want to take a guess which one is that?
Mm, healthcare?
Yeah, similar to that, but it's actually insurance, life insurance. No matter what
Yeah. Oh,
happens, people will always go for insurance. And surprisingly, the fundamental reason is, of course, the way I see it as a fear. But yeah, that makes a lot more sense uh, when people invest to insure themselves or their dear ones. That's exactly the conversation Miss Draupadi was having in her organization. Now she's actually talking cloud security not as a business, not as a roadblock, but as a business enabler. And the budget conversation has completely shifted. She has got a lot more organization influence. People have, in fact, including the CEO, they have started taking her opinions because they understand she completely is into that domain, wherein not only she understand the technical aspects, but she also understand how those aspects can be aligned with the business aspect here. And last but not the least, she was able to sleep better at night. So, if you ask me, what is that one thing, or what are those top key things that an CISO should keep in mind while taking this initiative to the board members? It's transforming this discussion from a cost center to a profit center, by not just being a security officer, but a strategic advisor, and from being a budget beggar to a business enabler, so that all the right stakeholders do understand what exactly we are trying to achieve. And you are not just securing, not just telling that I'm just focusing on one aspect of the business, which is actually the security aspect, but you are actually looking at the business at an overall level, making sure that it accelerates at an unprecedented speed.
Uh, Again, lot of information. Okay, so I think that's what we should look at. You've given a roadmap. Actually, your pointer was very valid. Most of the time, CISOs face a challenge of getting challenge of getting the budgets approved. So that's a major concern when you go to the board to get. I'll take that point very strongly. So coming to the frameworks part of it. So how does this NIST's CFSF 2.0 raise the bar for cloud controls this year? Because I think they've come out with a new version, right? 2.0 is a new version, right?
Yeah. So NIST CSF 2.0 is actually a watershed moment for cloud security in 2025. The reason being that it has completely shifted the narrative how we are looking at cloud ecosystem. Earlier, we used to have five pillars. It was identify, prevent, detect, respond, and recover. Now there
Hmm.
is another pillar which is added as govern, which kind of instructs these organization to look at the overall risk aspect, the overall governance piece, not just from a standpoint where we just do a tick mark after doing a annual audit or a compliance check. It's more of explicitly requiring organization to establish your cybersecurity governance and risk management strategies into the business process from ground up. The other thing that I liked about this new version of the framework is that now it has started recognizing the organizational diversity and human element. We do understand when it comes to cloud security, the moment we are provisioning any service or any workload in cloud, it's very common to configure it with misconfiguration. And it's not the deliberate intent I'm referring here, because whenever you spin up anything in cloud, the default settings most of the time are the misconfiguration. So it's very important to highlight that there is a huge room for human error when we are talking about when we are working along these workloads, these cloud services. So it's very important to understand the security posture management aspect when we are utilizing cloud for our business requirements. Not only it is focusing on the human aspect from a human error standpoint, it also ensures that we have the right people in the system with the right skill set. We properly plan the security trainings for them. We do conduct regular tabletop exercises in case if there is any kind of incidents, any kind of attacks, and definitely ensuring that our team understands the shared responsibility model. Um, i am i am i'm not that much shocked, I would say, but definitely surprised every time when I talk to folks about cloud security and they say, oh yeah, we use AWS, we use Azure, we use GCP, and it's their job to take care of the security aspect. So while they have been leveraging cloud for almost more than 5 7 years, they still fail to understand that shared responsibility model. So with this framework, adding this additional pillar, it emphasizes that every organization which is utilizing cloud do understand the shared responsibility model. The another aspect that I loved about this new release was the adaptiveness and the resilient security architecture. It means that you are moving from a traditional perimeter based security to the cloud native ecosystem. You understand what kind of threats are there in the cloud environment. And finally, clearly communicating all the gaps, all the transformation to all the stakeholders, whether those are your internal stakeholders or your external stakeholders, ranging from your board members to your partners to your customers. You are very clearly telling that what are those measures you are following on the technical front and how they translate into the business strategic objectives. What does it mean having this control, having this assessment, having this audit, having this compliance in my organization? How does it transform my business? What is in it for you? which is very very important. Now all these stakeholders are very well informed, they do understand what exactly they are into, where they are investing, and if at all they need to give any feedback, if they want to contribute on that posture improvement aspect, they have a very clear understanding of it. So if you ask me, the bottom line of NISTCSF 2.0, it is transforming cloud security from a technical discipline to a strategic business capability, which is of course the need of the hour.
I think your point again makes important point here is uh, you should look at as an enabler rather than a check mark. That is the way that we should. And if you really look at security or cyber security has been a check mark for years, right? Where when people used, I have compliant to this for over, I did this, I am done. So now the shift is coming back to us in terms of every user in the organization. Earlier it was only the infosec team or the compliance team who were responsible. Now you have to follow certain compliances so that you are compliant to the organization standards. So that is the stage that we are looking at, that is becoming an enabler also. Now the other point which I wanted to look today, if you are looking at your website also, people look at your website security score, right? That is the stage that we are going in from a security standpoint. Very valid points, Gunjan. Thank you for that. Why should insecure APIs uh, are faster growing cloud breach vectors today?
Sure. I think again, I would like to ask a question here. If I have to break a lock, right, assuming this
Hmm.
is the most advanced lock, what should be my first approach? Maybe with minimalistic effort or maximum output. What do you think should be the first approach?
When somebody is making or breaking the law, there should be an outcome which is exciting or interesting to the person. So, uh, at cases which make them, there are two ways that I will look at Gunjan. One is if there's an emergency kind of a situation and I had to break something
Yeah,
and my family is involved.
yeah,
That's one stage where people will break the
yeah,
law.
yeah.
The other way of looking at is if I gain something, if I do this, I'll break the law.
Correct.
Those are the two ways that I will look at it.
Yeah. That would be the intent, but when it comes to how do I want to do it, if you ask me, I've heard when I ask this question to people, they are like, I'll break it with a brick, I will hit and try if it is a digital lock, all those passwords and all. While the answer is very simple, I will first look for the key. If I'm able
Hmm.
to find the key, the right pin, the job is done. No need to do all that heavy lifting. That's
Right.
exactly what APIs are. APIs are actually your keys in that locked ecosystem. And let me paint a picture of why this is happening. The average enterprise today, they are using over 1400 cloud services. And
Hmm.
each of these service exposes multiple APIs. We are talking about tens of thousands of API endpoints per organization. While traditional security teams have spent decades to secure that perimeterized ecosystem, API operates in a very different manner. These are the sources which are actually meant to share data, to expose data, right? And the problem that we are seeing with these organizations nowadays is that even though there is a heavy usage of API in their in ecosystem, most of these organizations still don't have a clear idea of how many of these APIs they are using, what kind of data they are exposing, and who is accessing these APIs. This is about the problem statement of using APIs. Now, how does an adversary look at this, right? Again, like I said, if I get the key, it becomes super easy for me to open the lock and steal whatever I want to. That's exactly they also understand. With APIs, they do understand, even if the organization is using them, they still don't understand how to use them in a secure manner. So they do understand that it's very easy to kind of do a scan or recon for all the APIs that are there in the organization to exploit the default settings, the default configuration of these APIs. Let's say if rate limiting is not done properly, or the business logic has got some flaws. So they are actually putting efforts in finding those areas, those gaps, and then exploiting to achieve their targets, which is data exfiltration and all. So that's where it's very very important to understand that when you are using API, of course they are offering a lot of ease and convenience in terms of data sharing and exposing. At the same time, there is an additional responsibility of making sure that they are configured properly and securely. What makes API breaches particularly dangerous is the data exposure potential. You just have to find one misconfigured API endpoint and you can potentially access everything that the organization had spent years building in, right?
Mhm.
Another issue that we see specifically in cloud APIs is the authentication and authorization problem. We do understand these API securities managed by the tokens, right? Now, we also need to understand that there are certain additional, aspects which are associated with the token lifecycle management, like managing the right scope of the token, revoking the token when it is no longer needed, right? So these are some of the areas which kind of adds complexity to the organization's security perimeter, at the same time offering ease to these threat actors, that they just have to look for those APIs which are malfunctioned, which are not configured properly, which has got tokens lying into the system from don't know how many years now. There is not a proper rate limiting done, and that's where it becomes super easy for them to exploit and steal the data. APIs, if you ask me, are the nervous system of the modern cloud perimeter which is there. And we are essentially operating with an exposed nervous system, which is a area of concern. So my advice here would be, now when you look at your overall organization security posture, not only you need to understand what all APIs do I have, you also need to understand what is the process we are following when we are creating these APIs. There is one aspect to address the business requirement, there's other aspect that somebody is not being able to exploit them and steal what you have spent years in building into. So that's where API becomes a crucial and key vector in exposing data and becoming one big reason for cloud breaches in modern day.
You have nailed it, actually speaking, Gunjan. Now, I was part of one of the AI based organization, okay, where we used to look at same pointers which you mentioned, accesses, API tokens, whether they are needed, how many APIs we've created, what is the duration, how long that is needed, after it is done, are we deleting it? Is there a process put across to it? So, when I was part of the SOC and ISMS implementation for them, we always had a monthly review on the accesses getting created and deleted. First step. Second step was the tokens that were created, API tokens. You said absolutely right. Some 1400 is what you said, right? The APIs have been used, services, cloud services.
Yeah,
So those kind of services, what we had were all single sign-on, right? So we had single sign-on. Now, once I give an access and he's a root user and if he plays it out, then we are done, right? So this audit we used to look at every month. We used to look at who's the new joiner, what is the role that he's getting, who have left, has their the access been removed. That was a very cautious call which we used to take. And APIs tokenization, 100%. What you say? Now coming to zero trust, right? Now zero trust means I don't trust you at all, right? In a sense, saying that. Now, how zero trust in the cloud cuts literal movement well time by 50%. What's your
absolutely.
take?
And I think it's more than 50%, given the recent incidents and attacks that we are seeing. So the way
Mm-hmm.
I would like to answer this is, again, coming to the traditional perimeterized security. How it used to work is that we used to build the strongest walls in the castle at the entry and at the exit. So you just need to verify your identity at the time of entry. And once you are inside, you can actually access everything. It becomes super easy for you to, it's like now you have got the key to every single castle which is within this big fortress, right? With zero trust coming in, it has actually flipped the entire model. What it says is no matter who you are, what
Yeah.
you are accessing, from where you are coming, what is your last authentication. If you are raising a request to a new access, you have to identify yourself. And that's a very crucial transformation that zero trust brings in. And the magic happens when we bring micro segmentation also into picture. So we do understand when we are building applications or provisioning workloads, we can do micro segmentation by containing them within a specific network. So if at all you are, let's say, assuming you are able to exploit one component within this, because we have zero trust in place, if you want to expand your exposure to the other component, which is again segregated by the micro segmentation approach, you again have to go through that entire process of authorization, authentication, identifying yourself, which makes it very difficult for these attackers to do lateral movement, to do privilege escalation, right? Now, zero trust model creates a friction, both sometimes from a business standpoint as well. I do agree, but it's very much needed just to prevent someone having an unauthorized access or any kind of exploitation in your environment. The beauty of zero trust system is the continuous monitoring. Not only it is mandating you to identify yourself with every single request, but it is also learning from your behavior, the patterns that you are repeating, right? So if at all tomorrow I see some user is trying to make request and access at a very odd time from a very unknown region with a very unknown IP, this system will be able to immediately identify that there is a baseline deviation, which sometimes humans will not be even be able to understand what's going around. That's where this principle is going to help you not only identifying those malicious suspicious activities, but because they also have capability to take action, immediately it is going to revoke your access, it is going to isolate that affected server. And with all the automation and the added features which are there, the advantages that we have in cloud, we have also seen that sometimes they can also provision some new infrastructure just to ensure that business continuity does not get interrupted. At the same time, if there is any malicious or any unknown user inside the ecosystem, they will not be able to access it further. So when a zero trust system detects any kind of lateral movement, they can do that, they can take that real time preventive action, securing your organization, your cloud ecosystem. This rapid containment prevent attackers from ensuring that they have got persistent access, and from there on they can do other activities like defense evasion or lateral movement. So that's why that's the reason zero trust adds a lot of friction, especially to these guys who are trying to do abnormal activities in your environment.
I second zero trust in that sector because I was talking to some cybersecurity professionals, and when a person moves from one role to another role, how many times do we look at their access, whether they need that or not? Few people want to carry those access to the next level when they move also, but do they require? Why don't we have a zero trust mirror? When he wants to look at, he identifies himself. Otherwise, that access is not required. So this is one way. What you rightly said is sometimes businesses don't like that kind of an approach. They want the access to be there with them, no matter whether they use it or not. But from a security angle, do we need to have those access given to you, because it can be a threat for us as well if something goes. That's very very crucial when, and zero trust is addressing that, is what I think, and I see that right going forward. Now, what Tech upgrades slashes misconfiguration breaches by automatically guardrailing to commit time.
There are multiple ways to achieve this, if you ask me, and let's understand the primary reason of doing this, because now we are talking about doing this assessment, doing these, establishing these guardrails, not in our production ecosystem, but a stage before that. The reason is, of course, proactive security. We are no longer can only rely on the reactive approach. We always, like you rightly mentioned, that it's very, very important to keep up the speed. And what is the parameter of having the right speed? If you ask me, staying 10 steps ahead of the adversary. So that's exactly what we need to do. And in order to do that, we also need to ensure that the risk that we are going to address or take care in my production ecosystem, is there a way by which I can get an cognizance of that risk before it becomes part of my production risk? That's where these initial guardrails comes into picture. So in the cloud ecosystem, there are multiple ways to achieve this. We called it infrastructure as a code security. So whatever templates that you have, your Docker files, your deployments that you leverage to configure your applications, to configure your workloads, you can scan those templates. You can get an understanding of how does the overall security posture of these templates look like. Is there any compliance violation? Is there any violation of the best security practices which is there? And not only you can identify this, you can actually fix this. And by fixing this in one of the template is going to prevent the risk becoming part of your production risk for all those tens or thousands of workloads that you are going to provision using this very same template. The other way of having this approach is integrating these security measures in your CI/CD pipeline. We have seen all these modern organization heavily using CI/CD pipeline, or GitOps as we call it, like Argo CD, Jenkins, right? So with all the flexibility that it offers in terms of accelerating the business deliverables, it can also combine security aspect at this very stage. So we can actually start scanning our individual pipelines, the builds that we are generating, and if at all there is any kind of malicious activities, malicious code blocks, any secrets that we see into them, we can review them, we can fix them, and then only we should allow these builds to be further going ahead and deploying in our production ecosystem. The other way would be, we also see DevOps teams heavily leveraging these images, pre-built images from platforms like Docker Hub, right, online. So before you start using these images to procure your workloads, if you can scan these images, again, part of your pre-runtime security, you can get a very clear understanding of what all vulnerabilities these images have, what all packages do this image contain. And again, if there is any misconfiguration, if there is any malware, if there is any hard coded secrets, you can review them, assess them, fix them, and then use them for deployment. And when it comes to the application component specifically, we have this SaaS dust assessment, which gets us this whole visibility for the application components, because we do see there are multiple developers working on the very same application, different components using microservices based approach and CI/CD, right? So we can ensure that by doing continuous SAST and DAST assessment of these application components in a regular manner, we are getting aware of what all risks are getting introduced as we are coding these components into the application. So the key to success here is the same thing that I would like to reiterate here: shifting security left, the DevSecOps approach, wherein we are actually spinning security into the very thread of business operation, ensuring that not only we have least things to bother or mitigate when it comes to production ecosystem, but we are also actually containing the impact by fixing it at a source level and making sure our destinations are securely deployed.
Amazing. Now, I think that's where the whole DevSecOps pipeline started to bring up, right? So, your pipelines are getting secured. Either you use tools to check your code, how they are getting deployed? What are the vulnerabilities? What is that we have? Do we have a temporary fix, or this vulnerability is acceptable where you can look at, or if it is acceptable, what is the cause that it will do to the environment? Those are the factors that are getting added to the uh, pipelines when they build with these tools, right? So it is becoming crucial. I will go one step behind or back, Gunjan, because I started my career as a system admin. So when I started, we had this challenge always there, right? Dev says one thing, operation says one thing. So that is the whole structure we used to look at. Then once the DevOps became little stronger, the operations and DevOps used to look at. I've checked in the code. You take this. This is the branch you should take. You can pull from this branch. I've checked the code. It is checked and all. Now security teams were separated. I think that's where the security teams came in and said, "We will scan this before you get deployed. Let's get into DevSecOps," is what we brought into as a picture, right? So I've seen the cycle where, as a system admin, I've seen how the infrastructure used to get deployed, procurement of servers and all these things. Now it is not procuring of servers; we are spinning it using IIC, right? So that's the structure that we are having today. So very valid points there. Yeah. Now, what we are talking more on coming to AI, where threat hunting is becoming a big challenge today. And the other part is the hunter is also using the AI and the protector also is using AI. So that is the structure that we are in. What role does AI threat hunting play in detecting cloud incidents and detections?
I would say massive role. And if you can allow me a moment, I think my laptop's battery is low. I'll just quickly plug in my charger.
Yeah.
Just give me a moment. All right. Thank you. Appreciate the waiting. So yeah, if you ask me, massive role. And the reason is one of the challenge that we see, and it's the scale. The scale with which we are operating in cloud makes using AI very much essential. If you ask me to put this with some data points, the average enterprise organization generates 50 terabytes of data on a daily basis by making millions of API calls, hundreds of network transmission, user accesses, etc., etc. A human analyst can spend their entire career in analyzing that one day's logs from one cloud region. And we are no
Mhm.
longer in an era where we have a individual or one CSP that exists. We are in a multi-cloud ecosystem, which means unless we have AI, it's next to impossible to analyze all that data. Forget about finding the anomalies, protecting the ecosystem, preventing the breaches, etc. etc. So that's the reason AI is super important and crucial when it comes to doing threat hunting in cloud. The advantages that AI offers, like you rightly mentioned, it's both the attacker and the defenders leveraging the AI for their own advantages. But when it comes to the organizations, the advantage that AI offers is that with a detecting the subtle and low slow attacks nowadays, it's unless you have that behavior analysis capability in your security solution, it becomes very difficult to identify whether the activities that I'm seeing in my environment are actually coming from my authorized individual, or is it someone else impersonating on their behalf. Because if you ask me, nowadays getting or rather buying the valid credentials of an organization employees places like in deep and dark web, it's actually less than $10 sometimes. And these are not just the normal credentials I'm talking. You can actually get the domain admin credentials for a value as low as under $10. So that's where you need to understand that you need to have AI which is able to identify and differentiate the behavior between a legitimate access and someone who is making an access but is not a legitimate user but impersonating on behalf of a legitimate user. The other region where AI truly shines is the cloud threat hunting. We are no longer dealing with these signature based attacks or threats where we just have to tell our security solution these list of IOCs that only from these IOCs the threat is going to come, the attacker is going to attack. You just have to identify, quarantine, that's it. No, we need a security solution which is able to identify based on the behavior that it is witnessing in the field, which is where AI becomes super important. So with AI and ML coming in picture, they're able to monitor first of all every single activity, do an analysis of a normal baselining, and then identifying what is the abnormal or deviated behavior that we are seeing and classifying it as threat with all the necessary artifacts and details that we need to understand what's going wrong in my environment. Another region where threat hunting is particular powerful is identifying the compromised credentials, the stealthy attacks, the living off the land attacks which are there. And the best part is the predictive capabilities. So it's not just looking at the threats that we are seeing today, the behavior anomalies that we are monitoring right now, but based on these patterns it can actually predict those malicious suspicious activities, events, compromises, exploitation which may occur in future, so that in a proactive manner you can prepare your defense strategies accordingly. You can actually prevent these attackers from exploiting those things in your ecosystem. And the best part that I love with AI is it's seamless integration with cloud ecosystems, with cloud native utilities. That is like a force multiplier effect, I would say. By integrating these modules, the tools into cloud, you can actually identify these abnormal behavior. You can take certain preventive actions, like again isolating the affected systems, any kind of killing of the malicious process, identifying these behavior based on monitor tactic and technique, and also helping you understand what is the modus operandi of these threat actors, how they are trying to access your ecosystem, how what exactly they are trying to exploit. And that is an information that is going to help you a lot in understanding not about your ecosystem but also about your enemy. We do say that आप आधी जंग जीत लेते हो जब आप अपने दुश्मन को पहचान जाते हो. That's exactly what this integration is going to help you with. It is exactly telling you who is the one you are battling against, what exactly you need to do, how you can stay 10 steps ahead from these threat actors.
Great pointers there, Gunjan. I think you're making my day, actually speaking. So, a lot of information, very valuable information. How can CFOs justify cloud security spend as revenue protection, not cost? Because we spoke about this, right? So, getting our budget itself is it's very tough. And now, how do we justify this to the CFO?
So again, for this, we need to understand how does a CFO operates. They are those people who are always worried about every single penny. Their whole job is about minimizing the expenses and maximizing the ROI. So they try to ensure whatever money they can save, they can not unnecessarily invest or waste. At the same time, making sure business continuity is maintained. So again, I'll take an example of two CFOs here, with the same similar situations, with the same challenges, but with a very different mindset. So we have a CISO called David, who is being asked by their CFO, sorry, David, who is being asked by his CISO to allocate 100 million of budgets for cloud security initiatives. Now this CFO, before understanding anything, straightforwardly ask him a question: show me the ROI on preventing something that might never happen. Now you can
Mm.
understand the plight of the CISO here. It's very open-ended question where you initially take a lot of times to understand what exactly is being asked. How do I answer this, right? And how do I make sure that whatever efforts am I putting in answering this is something which is going to make sense to this guy. Now, on the other hand side, we have another CFO, Maria, which is, after hearing this, she does understand that cloud security is not an expense. And again, she might have heard that, yeah, there are certain competitive vendors which has got some breach which has costed them a lot. So when her CISO comes and asks the same thing, she asks a very straightforward question. She tells me, help me understand, what revenue does this security capability protect or enable? Now, this is a very simple maths, right? The CISO has simply need to go back, understand what is the cost of acquiring every single customer. What will be the complication if I have any issue, any kind of breach which might impact my business continuity? And it is not just the business aspect. They also need to understand if something goes otherwise, there will be marketing expense, there will be brand reputation, there will be legal cost, and there will be stock price downfall. So you just have to cater all these components, do the simple maths, and give this very accurate and logical figure to your CFO. Now this CFO, again following the same analogy, the insurance analogy, goes to the board and tell them, this is exactly actually not an expense, it's an investment that I'm doing to make sure that my business is protected, up and running. And it may not be only for the current business. Having this initiative might help me enable the new business, acquire new customers. So that's where, again, as a CFO, you need to understand that it's not that in cloud security you need to minimize the cost. You need to understand what is the strategic investment that is actually protecting your existing revenue, enabling new revenue streams. CFOs loves money, right? So you need to
Yeah.
talk that language. So it's not just the existing revenue. We might have new sources of revenue. And at the same time, we are also creating sustainable competitive advantage, which means more customer, more business, more money, right? So again, from shifting the narrative to a cost center, from a to a profit center is what a revenue enablement center is, what a CFO needs to look at. And that's exactly the same conversation the CISO needs to have with the CFO.
I was hearing one discussion. We had a war room which we created where we had the CISOs and CFOs, actual war room which we created. And we did a session in one of the event which you and me both were there. Okay. So in the event, we went and spoke, right? When we found the CFO, as you rightly said, how much is the ROI on the investment that I am doing? So we were given a set of pointers where you tell us the ROI. So we said, if you have these set of parameters, these set of certifications, the customers will come in. That's the first step. Second is, these are the pointers that you need to safeguard. If this goes as your word said, it was same as a brand reputation, your stock thing. Employee also will think about there is an issue, but how much of issue is going to affect him, but he will always think my organization has a problem there, so should I look at it? That's another pointer that comes in. Then the other point when we said is, now if you show these pointers, this is where the customers will come in, right? Apt points there, Gunjan. I am coming to the last question that I have in for you. What's that single micro habit every leader should for tomorrow adopt tomorrow for cloud? Because cloud is everywhere now. Now you have a mobile, you are accessing cloud services, whether it is LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, or anything. You're using a cloud service. Now how do we look at making a habit in protecting, or what should they adopt?
If you ask me one single habit that can transform the overall organization's cloud security resilience overnight, it's going to be start every day by asking one simple question: to anybody in your team, what's the riskiest thing we deployed in cloud yesterday? One question, 60 seconds, that's it. But this one simple daily practice will transform how your organization thinks about risk and governance in your ecosystem. Now, let me explain why this is going to help you a lot, because and why this habit is fundamentally so powerful. When it comes to assessing the security posture, what do we do? Quarterly business review, annual audit reviews, right? So it becomes one religious process, I would say, that is being conducted in the organization in a frequent time interval. When everybody is prepared, they do know, yeah, this is what we have to do. They already have plans. They do understand what are the compensatory controls we need to place, what are the ones risk that we need to suppress, how do we make sure that the report that we are going to present to the leadership is all green or most green, and then we are done with our job and back to the normal business. But when you start asking this one simple question, let's understand what is the outcome.
Hmm.
And the magic is in the response. When you ask someone, what's your riskiest deployment yesterday? You may not be asking a perfect question, right? Someone could have a medium severity deployment, someone could have a critical one, but this kind of makes them think about risk from a very different perspective. So the very next day, when they are going to do deployment, when they are provisioning something, they will have this thing in their mind, that is it the riskiest thing? What if it's the same question I'm being asked tomorrow, today, or tomorrow? Which is the one component I want to keep it as an answer, right? And this habit creates a psychological safety around discussing security concerns. So many times we have seen people hiding these gaps, the people who are mistakenly or knowingly have deployed these malicious workloads or services. They're always afraid, what if they will get caught in those security reviews, in those assessments that are being done. But having this very open, transparent conversation with anyone in the team will help them understand that this is something that anyone can do. It's a genuine mistake, right? We are not concerned here on focusing on the mistake, but it's something that we need to understand at an individual level, what mistake all of us are doing, and how we are ensuring that we are not repeating it on the very next day. At the same time, we are inculcating this habit when we are doing our day-to-day jobs, making sure we understand the risk, whatever business use case we are addressing, what is the risk we are introducing in the overall security posture. So you're not asking someone who screwed up yesterday. You're basically asking, what is that one thing we should be aware of? Even we have done that deployment, even if we have introduced that risk, the next thought in the mind would by default would be, how do I mitigate this? How do I ensure that this does not get exploited? And the long term effect is going to be profound. Now, it's not just a tick or an annual or a quarterly activity which you are doing to secure your business as part of the regular reviews. You're again actually making sure that it becomes part of your culture, where everyone is transparent, confident, and comfortable talking about the risk aspect along with the other day-to-day duties that they are doing in the organization. I have seen certain organizations, mostly with startups, where CEOs will catch you and might have these conversation. In fact, I was once part of a startup where I learned this, uh, and we have seen over the period of time this adoption has reduced 70% security incidents in the organization. Not that we did not have any kind of misconfiguration or so in the ecosystem, but we actually knew where these misconfiguration, where these risks, where these gaps are. While they do exist, we also knew that how we are making sure with those compensatory controls in place, even if someone gets to know about these gaps, they'll still not be able to exploit it. So the most resilient organizations aren't the one with the most sophisticated tools, if you ask me. They are the ones where security awareness is woven into the fabric of daily operations. And the transformation starts with one single question consistently by the leaders who genuinely care about managing and understanding risk. It may not be maybe the same person every day, maybe different person, but the idea is to bring this as part of culture, that everyone should understand the risk and governance part, and we all should be aware before we go ahead and take any action to protect it.
Amazing. Actually, yes, we should be looking at what we did, what is a review in kind of a self audit is what we are trying to do, is what you are saying thank you, Gunjan. I'll just summarize what we spoke in the last 1 hour with small pointers. We spoke about why cloud security is the first line of defense. Then we spoke about what is the strategy that CISOs adopt to share their pointers to the board. That's where we're making it part of the strategy discussion. We spoke about NIST CSF 2.0 version, what is it bringing and how the new controls are there. And we spoke in length with Zero Trust, where we spoke about how Zero Trust is enabling and protecting environments to a larger scale with access and the pointers where you are not trusted by default. It's Zero Trust, right? So that's what we spoke about. Then we spoke about misconfiguration breaches by automating guardrails to the commit. We spoke about CI/CD pipelines. We spoke about how the codes are written, the configurations by default are kept and not reviewed. And those are pointers that we spoke about. Then we spoke about how AI is getting added to what cybersecurity is looking at or cloud security is looking at. Both hunter and the defender are using AI. So that's the pointer that we started looking at. Then we spoke about how CFOs are getting pointers which need justification from the CISOs, and we give that kind of a revenue protection rather than not a cost stuff. That's what we spoke about. Then we spoke about the last pointer, which is one habit, as Gunjan rightly said. Think what you deployed yesterday, whether it is right or wrong. Maybe do a audit of yourself. You find something that is there. What is the rollback or what is the mitigation that you can look at doing it for that environment is what we should look at. Gunjan, great to have you today. And with this pointers, we would like to conclude our session. Any last pointers that you want to add or say to the audience who is watching this podcast event? Gunjan?
Yeah. So if you ask me a takeaway lesson here, it's in cloud security, continuous assessment, monitoring, analysis is something which is key to, having the right kind of security, perimeterized security in the digital ecosystem. And in cloud security, the difference between a good and a great cloud security is not what you protect, it's actually what you prioritize. That's where risk prioritization plays a crucial role. And that would be my single line take home lesson. If there are any questions, I know we are on top of hour, but in a sense of time, if there's any question you want me to take, I'm happy to do. Else, feel free to reach out to me over LinkedIn, or after the session. I'll be more than happy to interact. And I would also like to thank you for having me here for such great insightful discussion, and for the lovely audience for giving your precious and valuable time. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Gunjan. It was great having you. Lot of insights. If you want to connect to Gunjan, I have brought in her LinkedIn connection link down where you can reach out to Gunjan and you can connect. You can talk. You can put your pointers on the comment section. We will try to answer them as soon as possible. We take a small time gap where if you see the questions and we will answer them, but we'll definitely answer them. That's what is a promise that we give from Power to the audience. We have streamed this podcast live onto LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Hope you found this discussion valuable. And thank you for joining us today. Our next episode is scheduled tomorrow, which is on innovate how to initiate proactive, creative, and ramp up measurable value, is what we're talking about on the framework of regenesis. which is happening on a Zoom link tomorrow. We are not. It's a registered come event, so do register on our event and join us. Thank you, Gunjan. Thank you for being here. Great to have you, and good day, Gunjan. Thank you.